more power, bigger, you know. So I have an 18-inch lathe, and I'm dying to make an 18-inch bowl. But you can see by the fact that I've yet to drill a hole in the middle that I haven't done that yet because I find that I have trouble handling the bowl blanks that are big enough to do this out of. And so this one is not big enough for an 18-inch bowl, but I think that probably I might could do a 16 out of it. But let's just say I was going to make this 18, and so I'd find a stump, for lack of a term, a log. In my opinion, if it's going to be for an 18-inch or 19-inch bowl, the stump needs to be at least an inch longer, and it needs to be probably an inch wider to give me a little room. Well, the stump of that size is going to weigh about 160 pounds if it's wet mahogany. And I know many of you have done that, and I know some of the things in Joe's front yard are that way, so I thought I'd try to find out who made a way to make this simple. And sure enough, on the internet, which of course we know is never a lie and always works perfectly, there were 1,000 ways to do it. So I picked out one, and I want to show you the one I picked out, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. And when we're done with that and we think we know how to make a bowl blank, then I want to talk about the part that I struggle with the most, and that is how I dry the bowl blank. And I have some magic elixir here that I want to talk about as far as one of the possibilities of how to dry a bowl blank. I would pass this around, but I don't really trust everybody in here.
Radioactive?
No, this is my chainsaw chop saw. So I'm going to drive up to this stump here that weighs too much for the old man to pick it up. And I'm going to look at the stump and say, well, that looks like I might be able to make a bowl that way. So let's scoop the stump over here into this little wood thing. If you notice, there's a screw right there. There's one on the other side. And the reason for that is it's all glued up, got some braces and stuff in it. So there's less chance of me running into a screw with my chainsaw. So it's only got those two screws holding it to this platform. And this U-shaped thing is, you know, sacrificial. So if I can make this work, I may have to have somebody help me. Why don't you grab this right here, Dave? Hold that right there.
I could do that.
What I'm trying to do is try to pick this up without making a trip to the urgent care. My wife is pretty smart. She signed up for one of the premium plans on Aflac. So when I come home, she says, have you got a receipt from the doctor? So that she can get the claim on Aflac when I manage to hurt myself doing things. So the idea with this is I now have mechanical advantage to pick this up relatively easily. And I can now handle it. And thanks to Bob Neese for this marvelous off-road hand truck. Because with these big old fat tires on it and lots of pressure, I can get in rough places. Not that Joe's yard is rough, but I can get in rough places to pick this up. So now that I'm here,
So what you've done then is you take like a log lifter, you know, one of those log lifter things where you take a ladder and you put a...
Yeah.
That's...
So now I've got this thing up here where I can maybe do something with it. And I can take off my clamps. And now I've got a lazy Susan in here. So now I can turn the thing and turn it any way I want to. So let's try this way to begin with. So first of all, back to having it like this. If I now decided that it was too big for a 16-inch bowl, this would be a first time to take my chainsaw and using this thing over here as a guide, I could slice it off and probably get it pretty close.
So you nail that piece of wood in there, right? The template, once you nail it in there?
This piece?
No.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Excuse me, I'm excited.
The problem with giving
Excited.
demonstrations to really smart people, they're always ahead of you.
Well, I want to make sure I got all the notes right.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to miss anything.
All right, so now I got I'm not going to try to cut the length. I could if it was longer. When I have one guy who occasionally will give me a stump, he's a marvelous man. He'll bring it over to me, put it in his truck. And sometimes they're longer than I'd like, because if the stump has got a diameter, a minimum diameter of 16 inches, I'd like for the stump to be 18 inches long, so I've got a little to cut off on either side and still get the maximum 16 inches out of it. So this one happens to be cut right. Any of you ever shop at Pep Boys there on US 1 across from Wendy's? You know where that is? This is where this mahogany came from. That blew down in Irma, and I was there the next morning and I got this piece. And so it's been sitting in my shop with the anchor seal on it ever since. So let's get ready to make the bowl now, since I'm not going to make it any longer. So I took a little hand planer and I cut the end a little bit for you there so I could see where the pith was. There's my pith. I got this, and these are called pith blocks. So if I can get this to work, I'm going to try to put the corner of that screw in my pith. Give it a second. It didn't come out quite long enough, but it's okay probably. And I'll put one over here. Okay, so now what I've got is I've got something to sight on to say, if I like this, let's get this one a little more vertical. I dropped something. And get this one a little bit like this. Okay, that gives me a pretty decent bowl on this side, and maybe not so bad on this side. Anybody would like to cut it a different way? Is that how you think you cut it? I don't want to cut it. I don't want to cut it this way and have a real deep bowl. And I don't think there's enough here that I need to cut the sides off, but I could certainly do that if I was trying to do this. So let's push it forward a little bit and line it up and get it over here. So now, this is the key piece. This is the piece that locks onto here and guides the chainsaw up and down to make it so that it is like a chop saw. So all we do is put this on the chainsaw right here. Wait a minute. I guess maybe I put too much Loctite in here. There we go. This is out of what's known in the trade as an Alaskan chainsaw mill. You usually put a 2x6 on top of a log, line down, and you take your chainsaw and you make slabs out of it. So this was the idea that I saw on the internet, was to make one of these into a chop saw. So now all I got to do is line this up with my pith blocks. Yep. So now push it where my pith blocks are, and I got to go that way a little bit on that end. So let's turn it just a little bit until I can get it. Looks like to me that I'm ready to cut. Anybody got any questions on that so far? Now, I'd obviously clamp it down and do all that before I started. I wouldn't just do it as quick as that.
The two verticals that you have, are you making parallel to the main?
Say again?
The two verticals, the 1x2s, are you making them parallel to the 2x6?
Well, that would be the idea, was that I didn't make this one right, so I can't see the top. If I'd seen the top, I'd make sure it looked to be.
But you don't want to cut into it and do a sloppy off thing.
I don't really care if I cut the pith a little bit. I just want to cut
Not it, but your guide.
this thing.
Yeah, the
Just
1x2s.
Just these pieces, they're
Yeah.
sacrificial.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'd make them thinner if it was a thinner piece of wood, bigger if they were a bigger piece of wood. Now, what's interesting is I like to make the natural edge bowls, and in the natural edge bowls, I just cut the pith because they don't matter as much as the regular bowls do in terms of getting rid of it, because that'll end up being in your tenon, and you're going to get rid of it anyway. So basically, once I get the saw started, I can just lay it on here and just hold the throttle and let it go. Now, one of the secrets to doing this is this right here. Anybody tell me what that is right there? That yellow spot?
Link or
This is a caution blade. Be careful, it will cut your leg off really quick. That's a professional grade blade that has no protection against kickback. There's no link in between these big links. And the reason for that is when the saw turns the corner on the front up here, saw's heavy, I'm sorry to not be. When it turns the corner, this middle piece would have a separate little thing sticking out, looking like this raker here. And the idea is when you're cutting the piece of wood, this is all fine because you're pulling against there, but when you get out here, it pulls the chain back into your face. Ideally, it's put that thing and lock it, but not always. So when you buy these saws that don't have that, you have to be really careful what you're doing to make sure that you don't put the end of the lumber in that. On the other hand, if you're going to split a log that big, you're almost going to have something like this, a very aggressive chain to do it with, to do it good. Now, does anybody know what this thing is?
carpenter.
This is new on the market, whiz bang, guaranteed to be the best thing you ever bought. And this is still new. And notice the angle here. The angle's all set up so you can saw. What you'll also notice is there's a round file and a flat file. Because you're filing off the top of this tube here as you sharpen it. And that's what controls your depth of cut. Most people just sharpen them with a round file, never file the raker down. Consequently, as they continue to sharpen their chain, notice that the teeth are slanted back, it seems to get duller and cut slower because they haven't cut the raker tooth down, which keeps it from getting too deep. So to really be effective at doing this, you got to have a sharp chain that's aggressive. And this is the thing you need to sharpen it with. If you take it to your local chainsaw shop, they won't use this. They'll just put it on their thing, and they'll sharpen those teeth, and rarely ever will they put a flat stone in and stop the raker. But this has been out now for about a year. And it works on this side, it works on this side, and you can open it up and change files in it. It's typical of everything Stihl makes. It's a pretty nice piece of equipment. So,
What's it cost? What's it cost?
I think about $40. This is for a 325 chain. They're specific for the chain you buy it for. Any questions about that? I have to give a disclaimer here. I have been involved in Florida Baptist disaster relief for about 15 years. And one of the things I teach from them is chainsaw safety. To try to make people understand, because that's what we do as we go cut down trees. And I'll have to be honest with you, that I do take samples home with me when I'm here. Yeah. So that's how we cut it. This is how we position it. And then when I get the half done, I can lay it down and cut the edges off, or I can get ready to make my bowl blank. And to make my bowl blank, I'd lay it down and, as you said, I'd stick this thing on it. I drill myself a 1/4-inch hole in here, and I'm ready to cut myself the circle. Same as I cut this circle with that 1/4-inch hole in the middle of it. And I know this is going to be amazing to you, but I brought my bandsaw with me. Here's my bandsaw right here. That's the exact replica of my bandsaw table, except the blade's a little bit bigger than the little blade that got poked up and out of here. This is a product made by Carter, who makes a lot of bandsaw accessories. Those of you that have bandsaws probably know about them. And for that reason, I bought their circle guide. You can make 1,000 different ones. They're not hard to make, but I hope to be cutting a lot of circles, so I decided I'd buy this one. And unlike most of you, I'm running out of time, so we made this a promise to our 3 kids that we would spend their retirement before we died. So we're doing our best to do that. And part of that is for me to be able to have stuff that I can enjoy. So I can adjust this sucker by moving this way. Got a little scale on it. So if I take my 16-inch bowl blank and I put this thing on 8 inches, hopefully I'm remembering my math okay, and I tighten it up, I pull this little magnetic thing back. I put my bowl blank on here with the hole in it. This is the only part that's hard, is getting it on the circle. I push it up, spin it around, and cut it. That's how I make the bowl blanks. Pretty simple to make them, and it's pretty good. Now, when I go to turn them, sometimes I find that with a big ugly bowl blank like this thick, they're not round. And I'm like, didn't I do a better job than that, making them round? Because I got too much wood and too little air to cut. So sometimes I think I want to put them back on the bandsaw. So what I did was I made this little doohickey here that I can put on my circle, and I can either take my face plate and put on there, and get it right, and I can recut it on my face plate, take just a little bit off, or if I happen to have a one that's got the tenon on it already and it has grown because of its drying, I can put this back on here. Remember the bowl's up here, I've got a 12-inch stroke, so I'm able to then take this one and do a little fine tuning on it, get it a little better. And all that is so that someday I can make this 18-inch bowl. Because those of you that have 12-inch lathes or 14-inch lathes, you know that you can't make a 12-inch bowl. It's near impossible, because how do you get it round enough to put it on the machine to start with? So, if you fix that.
Let's see. When you use that other adapter, you have to put a bigger spacer on top of your table.
Very good point. This is the spacer, this piece of, you know, ladies, I apologize for this, and you won't recognize it, but when you go to the bathroom publicly, there's these things that divide the stalls. That's what this is. This is toilet stall material you can buy at Home Depot. It's called starboard or something. So it's impervious to most anything. So that's the same height as this and this assembly. And you're right, when I put this on here, I have to put some shims up to give it a little better time, or have it held pretty tightly. And when I put this on, I take this screw out and I put a bolt in, so I've actually got a little more holding power on the chuck when I do that. So, yes, sir. Yes.
Do you have to have that pin in line with the very front of the teeth of the bandsaw so it doesn't just auger into a circle?
There's a great deal of debate about whether it's the teeth or the gullet, and I don't know the answer to that. It's one of the two.
Pretty much like
So
that.
I put it in the middle.
And when you first start turning it around, is it hard to get the blade to catch?
No.
I guess if it's like this,
Usually because I'm out here and I can actually push into it,
Okay.
so I'm not starting
To get
with the circle. I'm
started.
actually pushing in. And what problem is I'll have when I'm done, I sometimes can't get the outer piece off of the inner piece. You know, I have to
Oh, okay.
turn it back around and pull it back out. Now, one of the critical tools we use is a bandsaw. And Mr. Fantastic friend of mine, Bob over here, gave me this bandsaw blade. What a guy to give you a bandsaw blade. And this is a furniture grade bandsaw blade from a place in Miami called Smith Hamilton. If you guys don't use it for your bandsaw blade, they're as good as any in the world. And they make them $9 is what you pay for this. And this is a 151-inch bandsaw blade. This is for a great big bandsaw. And it lasts a really, really long time in this particular service. This is a little thicker than most people have bought, that he's found that works better in some of the mills he uses. So this is the blade I use, and I'm not going to open it because I'd for sure be at the urgent care if I did. So
What'd you say that width was on that?
this is a half inch by 3 teeth per inch, and they're very heavy, called raker teeth, that help to take out. When you have a piece of wood you're cutting that's about this big, you need to have a lot of room in the teeth so they can fill up with the sawdust, the gullet. What do you call that sawdust? This is a trick question. Swarf. S-W-A-R-F. I won 2 tickets to an Alan Jackson concert once. When they asked that on Kids That Film, what do you call that? I called it up Swarf, and my kids were listening to the phone and said, that sounds like that. I learned that reading. We were. That's the bandsaw, how I do it, how I cut this. Anybody wonder what these 2 little nuts are doing here, or you just think maybe I got more nuts than I need? This, when I put a natural edge bowl on this, I can run one of these in and tilt it. And in the natural edge bowl, you're trying to make the bark line on the tall side and the bark line on the short side equal. So you put a little magic marker on your tool rest and turn it. If it's not right, you turn this a little more. And then when I'm all done, I tighten up the other screws and I can start off with a natural edge bowl, hopefully having it so it'll come out with this side being equal and this side being equal instead of one side being like this. So that's why these pieces are here. Okay, now we've got a bowl blank. To me, the hardest thing is how to dry them, and I'm interested in everybody's opinion about how to dry them. This is what I'm currently doing, is I wrap the outside with brown paper, and I put tape on it, and I roll it around on the table to try to flatten that tape out. This I read on the internet somewhere, so it must actually be accurate. Talked about, since it's drying more from the inside than it is from the outside, the compressive strength is such that it's going to tend to suppress the cracks. I like that, so that's what I started doing, and it's working pretty good. 2 meetings ago, I brought this bowl here, again, Albizia, a big piece of Albizia that he brought me, we cored, and I made 4 bowls out of it. And at the time, it was 37% moisture, and I have this handy-dandy, super accurate, comes from Harbor Freight, Lowe's, or any other place that's not too expensive, telling me that today I have 15%. So I'm down from 17% less than a month ago. It's dry. When I get to about 12%, I'll take the edge bowl down to being almost final thickness and let it dry for a while later. Now the other mechanisms that I've dried for are the pans. And I would put the bowls in this pan. Obviously that one wouldn't fit, but most of them fit. And I boil them for 2 hours. And it's kind of funny looking like a witch in the cauldron out in the yard boiling the bowls. The neighbors ask what you're doing. I'm an engineer by training, so I tend to think of things in engineering terms. And when we build a steel structure, we stress relieve it. We heat it up to a certain temperature, 1300 degrees, and we leave it for a period of time. So all the stress from the welding and expansion and contraction is out of it. So when we're done, it's a stress relief, will perform like it's supposed to. So I like the idea of stress relieving. I've done some limited steam bending. You put a piece of wood in a thing, you fill it up with steam. How hot is steam? Typically 212 degrees is boiling. That's how steam works. And the steam softens the lignin, I think I'm pronouncing that right, in the wood so you can bend the wood. Well, so if I put the bowl in here and I boil it, I'm stress relieving it. I'm softening the lignin, so all these forces that want to make the bowl do this and do that, I'm softening them up. And I can't tell you if it works or not, but it was fun to boil the bowls and try them, and I've had some success with it. They don't dry any faster, but they did seem to come out growing less in the long dimension than the ones that I didn't do. And I can't find anywhere where anybody has done a, real test where they had control specimens and all that stuff. So it's one of the things that I enjoy doing because it gives me a chance to have a pot and pan in particular like I'm cooking. And then there's the secret elixir. Anybody want to guess what this is?
Fabuloso. Looks like Fabuloso.
Well, it's in Starbucks, because to me it kind of reminds me of Starbucks. This is denatured alcohol. Normally it's clear, but why would you think this isn't clear? This is the tannin out of Florida mahogany. So I put this full of denatured alcohol. I don't boil it because I think that might get to be hazardous. I fill it full of denatured alcohol, it takes about 5 gallons, and I put the bowl in it for a couple of days. And the theory behind this is that the alcohol is hygroscopic, I think is the right word. It sucks up water. And I won't go into why that is, but there's a bunch of theories about what it does and what it doesn't do. And you take it out, and I put it out in the hot sun, and it dries pretty quick because alcohol evaporates really, really quickly. And the idea is it has filled all of the places that have the water, displaced the water. The water has become in solution with the alcohol. And as the alcohol evaporates, it tends to bring more of the water out with it. Now, I have some history in life that has made me tend to believe this. It may not be true, and that is, long ago when I was a young man, I used to try to do underwater photography. And your camera cases frequently leak. Standard procedure was you dumped your camera in alcohol and then let it dry because the alcohol helped remove the water from it. Many places like oil refineries pump alcohol through pipes that have been washed to take the last bit of water out. Any of you guys ever put water stuff, fuel treatment in your gasoline? It was alcohol. That's what it was. And doing the same thing, it sucks up the water, and then as it leaves, it takes the water with it. So now I've got 5 gallons of this funny colored stuff at home. I've yet to devise a way to accurately measure its specific gravity so I can tell how much water's in it versus how much alcohol is still left. So I'm working on this for my Father's Day. Maybe I want to buy a still. And I'm hoping nobody gets upset when a still shows up. But you can buy them on eBay. They're only like $75. So I figure if I take a still and I still this stuff, and again, I have some family history in that too, from long ago, generations back, that I'm making it clean, pure alcohol out of it again, and be able to use that to dry more bowls. And then, of course, many people just put them in a bag, sometimes with shavings or without, seal the bag up, put it on the shelf. My experience with that has all been everything molded really severely, and that's why I went to these other mechanisms. So I'm interested in other people's comments on the drying techniques, drying mechanisms, anything I've talked about, then I'll sit down and be done with it.
Before you get to that, Mike, how long do you let it soak? You may have said it.
2 days.
2 days, no matter what size bowl it is, or small or less.
And that's a good point. But if I really was brave, this would be a pressure cleaner, and I'd heat it up in a pressure cleaner, both boiling it to get the temperature higher and to get the alcohol in there with the pressure and be able to get more of it out. But I'm not that brave, and since I'm heating this on a propane fire, I figure if the alcohol gets out, it's going to be a mess. And since I retired from the fire department, I might get an awful lot of kidding if I caught half the neighborhood on fire with the emergency alcohol.
Yeah.
On leap year, do you let it sit one extra day?
Please.
I thought.
So Mike, what I go back and forth with the bags, and I tried that a couple times with the tape on different vessels. What I do too is I also weigh the piece.
Yes.
You know, what I'll do is I'll weigh it as soon as I'm ready to start drying it.
3,710 grams.
There you go. And then I'll put it, I use a bag.
Yeah.
But what I do with the bag also, I stuff it with paper, newspaper. I've never got any molding on that, but then when you start taking the paper out, you can feel the dampness.
I use shavings. I didn't use paper.
Yeah, I did that first, but weighing it too helps. It's just kind of, and I also use the moisture meter, so, you know, just to check one against the other. But weighing it is not.
This one, when I made it, was 3,710 grams. When I last weighed it, which was on, I think, February the 22nd, it was 2,370 grams. And there's an old guy, I cannot remember his name, who's been wood turning forever. When I first started doing carpentry back in the 70s, I remember reading about him. He writes for Rockler now, and he talks about what he said. He says once you've lost more than a third to half of the weight, it's dry enough to continue. And so that's one of the things I'm doing is keeping up with the weight. When I see the weight gets down to where I've lost 30, 40% of it, or my percentage gets down, and again, this is not a particularly accurate meter, then I'm ready to go give it a turn. And so far, this lumber that Bob gave me has really not warped very much. The warpiest wood that I have found was Bashovia and lava warped to beat the band. I couldn't control the mahogany doesn't warp as bad. I did some sycamore recently, and I have one more drying technique that I didn't bring, but I've dried smaller bowls in a 5-gallon container of silica gel. And this, again, something I read on the internet, it has to be true. And they dried in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I was able to finish. It was a smaller bowl. It was 8 inches or so. But put it in the silica gel, which is bright blue when I started, and it turns gray. Then I can put it back in the oven and regenerate the silica gel. So I've got some measurement of the moisture content. And the bowl dried enough that I was able to turn it fine, finish it, and give it to the person. That was sycamore wood. So I forgot to.
Did you say that was what gel? Did you say it was?
Silica.
Silica gel. Think of it. It comes when you buy a camera. That little thing that do not eat
Oh,
on.
yeah.
This had great big letters, do not eat on.
The thing in your pills, you're supposed to leave it in pills.
I wish I could remember the guy's name, because I know you guys remember his name, who came on about the weight, and then the next time he talked about putting a small bowl in silica gel, and in 2 weeks you can finish it, because silica gel has taken enough of the temperature out of it.
On that, too, on the weight, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I keep weighing it, and when the weight doesn't change, I figure then it's dry.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's, I mean, it usually takes about a month, but I don't do bowls that big yet, you know, but about 14 inches, but still, that's what I do. I wait till the weight's the same, and then, but you can always feel it. You can feel it. It's still, if it's damp, you'll feel it.
Now, I do have a bowl that's a problem at home that I'm struggling with. And I found this piece of wood in Panama City, Mexico Beach, when I was up there cutting it out of a great huge camphor tree. It's almost this big.
When you get everything ready, how big of a piece do you have to shove on the lathe?
When I'm done, it's going to be 17 and 99 of an inch. So I can put it on there and get all 18 inches out of it. That's what I'm intending to try to do, till I can afford, of course, a bigger lathe. Get them out. Anyway, his wife was there with him when he brought this piece of wood up, and I was making this camphor bowl, and it made my shop smell so bad, his wife left. And I couldn't stay in the shop. It was overwhelming, like you'd spilled 55 gallons of camphor all over the floor. And I took it home, and my wife, who has nasal problems, likes this stuff called Tiger Balm, she was over there with her hair, liking it. And I saved my shavings, and I haven't had any accidents with them yet. This was almost the first. I put the shavings around the flowers in the front of the house. The dog wouldn't go out anymore. So it's gotten dry enough, but every time I cut a 16th off, the odor comes back. And I don't really know how you can finish it. And maybe just leave it not finished so that she can use it for a sniffer. So, anyway, thank you for letting me. Let me make it one last commercial for this.
The links, you were talking about the links. You're going to give me the links.
Yeah, I'm going to send him the links where I bought all this equipment, these wheels, and this Lazy Susan in there, and most importantly, that thing on the chainsaw. The links will all be in there. And should the club be interested, and should Joe be willing, I'd be glad to make one of these and put it in his yard, so that you came over with your little Allen wrench and screwed it on to your chainsaw, and you whacked the bowls up your own way, in case you wanted to do that. Particularly if you're trying to get a bigger piece, it means that you'd have less of a piece to pick up, put in your trunk, and you'd have a better chance of cutting it accurately. Or if you're going to Joe's one day and he's got some exceptional wood, and I've got some from his yard that I just feel blessed to have, I'd be glad to drag this sucker over and we can try it out and see, because it's all about doing a better thing. The other opportunity I wanted to ask you all, when I get this big bowl made, this 19-inch bowl made, I'm not going to have any way to finish the bottom of it, because when I turn it around on my lathe, my little old vacuum chuck, which is about this big, isn't going to hold it, so I'm going to have to struggle with how to hold it. And many of us use cold jaws or Longworth chucks or other things to hold the bowl backward. Bob, not this Bob, but that Bob, had made a really nice Longworth chuck. It was a lot of effort. And I think we can improve the design of that Longworth chuck. And I wanted to offer people who were interested to come to my shop for one of the workshops, and let's make Longworth chucks for everybody. I have the tools all set up there, and I'll buy Baltic birch plywood. Those of you who haven't used it, it's plywood like this, only there's like 42 plies in it. So it's much stiffer than regular plywood, much smoother. And so with 2 half-inch pieces of Baltic birch, you can make a very nice Longworth chuck that, goes in and goes out. I have a router table with a little radius jig set up on it, so cutting those little swirls is real simple to do. And of course, you can start out from cutting the plywood here to get them round. So that's the intention of one of the workshops someday soon, is to make Longworth chucks of the size that would fit your lathe, and then you can buy the hardware for it wherever you want to buy it once you've made the little pieces. So I'm done. Thank you very much.